Ripple enters a $7.3 trillion market with DBS and Franklin Templeton. They're set to launch trading and lending solutions powered by tokenized money market funds and Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin. Investors can earn yield by acquiring Franklin Templeton's SG Benji token on DBS digital exchange using Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin. DBS will explore enabling Benji tokens to be used as collateral to obtain credit from the bank or third-party platforms. Singapore, September 18, 2025, DBS, Franklin Templeton, and Ripple are partnering to provide accredited and institutional investors with innovative trading and lending solutions powered by tokenized money market funds and the XRP ledger and RLUSD. Look at this powerhouse of people, man. This is so cool. DBS and Franklin Templeton Ripple have signed a memorandum of understanding to launch trading and lending solutions powered by tokenized money market funds and stablecoins. This is who's in the picture. If you're interested, you have the head of securities services, global transaction services at DBS. You have the head of digital assets, institutional banking group at DBS, and you have the CEO of DBS Digital Exchange, Senior Vice President of Strategic Ventures at Franklin Templeton, VP of Global Head of Trading and Markets at Ripple, and of course the Fiona Murray, the Managing Director of APAC. This partnership is formalized with the signing of memorandum of understanding and brings them together the unique strengths of one of Asia's largest financial institutions, a global investment manager, and a leader in enterprise blockchain cryptocurrency solutions. A leader in enterprise blockchain cryptocurrency solutions. It goes on to say, which is already seeing a greater interest from institutional investors allocating to the asset class. Some 87% of institutional investors expect to make investments into digital assets in 2025. Holy smokes. Rath Economan did get this out pretty quickly. Some of the information I've already read to you. I just wanted to give him the highlights since I did see it. Him was the first person to mention this. Great job on his part. To give you some additional context here, DBS is Asia's leading financial institution, facilitates trading and provides credit lending using tokenized funds. Of course, Franklin Templeton, you know the name, they have $1.5 trillion assets under management. Globally recognized investment manager, responsible for tokenizing Franklin's on-chain US dollar short-term money market fund on the XRP ledger. And of course, Ripple providing the infrastructure to make all of this happen. Lots of really cool information. Just to give you some additional stuff here, DBS annual. So I wanted to take a look at here, how much money does DBS and Franklin Templeton manage and process per day? Just because if they're starting here, who knows where they're going to end up and what other solutions they're going to bring. Just to give you that additional context here, DBS manages over $236 billion in high net worth assets under management as of April 2025. And then of course, you're talking about with record breaking total assets under management reaching about 442 billion, about 324 billion US. Recently, Franklin Templeton is 1.64 trillion assets under management, which is a monster. I did want to take a look here. Global money market funds currently hold about $7.3 trillion in assets. Of course, if we can get 5 or 10% of these assets on the XRP ledger, that could be legendary. And so a lot of people are talking about this. When you have Franklin Templeton itself tweeting this out, that is something that you should take notice to. Crypto Darren pointed out, seems relevant with the DBS and Ripple news. This is Barclays and DPS are already working on proofs of concept to explore possibilities of digitizing trade finance assets on distributed ledger. Standard Chartered and DBS, for instance, are currently working on Ripple-based blockchain solutions, develop more efficient, innovative trade finance services. So there could be Barclays a part of this in the background since they were working with DBS on these solutions and Ripple. You do have Jack McDonald talking about some information here too. A digital asset investor did post, you won't be able to say that there weren't signs. While crypto was focused on cartoon monkeys and green candles, many of us were called wild and crazy conspiracy theorists. I guess repo transaction volume is well into the tens of trillions globally, nearly 12 trillion in the US itself. DBS Bank and FTI Global and Ripple will provide to enable first ever repo trade of tokenized money market funds. So even more things being announced here. And here is Verson and his brother talking with Edward Dowd about this. Let me play this.
Do you have any thoughts on that, on the debt refinance cycle that's been going on since 2009?
Yeah, so going into 2019, we had a synchronized global slowdown occurring. There was a repo crisis, and that's the plum. Repos are overnight lending between banks and the Federal Reserve. And that's the plumbing of the system. And that started to unravel in the fall of 2019. And then lo and behold, COVID magically came along, and this crisis allowed and gave central banks and governments license to spend like drunken sailors. So Federal Reserve printed money and the US government spent that money. Again, printing money doesn't really matter until it gets into the system, and that was via the fiscal deficits that exploded and the free money that people got during COVID. That created, for the first time, actual inflation. The inflation since 2009 prior to that was asset inflation. This created actual goods inflation. And then the Federal Reserve went on its unprecedented monetary hike cycle, the fastest rate hike cycle.
All right. Here's a little bit more information. Of course, we just talked about this. I played the Vandal clip here just to give you some information about repo transactions, because this is what I was interested in finding out as well. Repo transactions between the US and the UK are a significant part of global financial market with trillions of dollars in annual volume and central role in short-term liquidity provision, banks and institutional investors. This market faces issues such as counterparty risk, settlement delays, and regulatory hurdles. The systemic risk during periods of market stress. Blockchain technologies, specifically Ripple solutions and XRP Ledger, are actively being explored to make these cross-border repo trades faster, safer, and more efficient by using tokenized collateral and instant settlement. Here is the information. 12 trillion in 2024. The UK market averaged daily turnover equivalent to 2.3 trillion, about 2.5 trillion, the most cross-border trades occurring between the UK and non-UK parties like the US. Repo markets are fundamental for managing liquidity rates and collateral across borders, often used by central banks, sovereign funds, and major banks for short-term obligations. Counterparty risk talks a little bit about counterparty risk, settlement delays, regulatory complexity, and market stress vulnerabilities. And so I'll bring you more information on this when we have it. Also, this does come into play here. Remember this video where we saw pictures of RLUSD, Bildel, and Benji on the platform here with Ondo? Check this out.
In order to build institutional grade products like OUSG, we really need to work with partners that have a focus on institutional grade standards and 24/7 instant convertibility. So we're really excited to finally be able to bring OUSG to XRP Ledger, the decentralized public blockchain, to continue to build institutional grade cash products alongside Ripple. That's something that a lot of our institutional clients have been really drawn to. It's about routing capital and assets to make a financial system that is ultimately faster, fairer, and more accessible to everyone. Tokenization is not just a pilot or a stepping stone, but actually has real commercial utility today. And we've seen that in the numbers, 200 billion plus in stablecoins, 5 billion plus in tokenized treasuries. And our offerings now between OUSG and RLUSD are used every day, constantly in production. We have real investors instantly minting and redeeming, in many cases, tens of millions of dollars at a single point in time. This is that watershed inflection point moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, the future of finance is here, and Ripple and XRP are at the heart of it. Thank you for watching. I will be back home next week. I appreciate your support. I hope you're enjoying this XRP content. Aloha, friends. I have just built a course for beginners, intermediaries, and experts of XRP to better understand the XRP Ledger and Ripple, the company. If you're interested in getting that course absolutely free, there's a link down in the description. Please let me know what you think after you've taken the course. Aloha.